Hello, my loves. I'm so sorry for just disappearing for... It's been like a month, 2 months? I hope it hasn't been 2 months. When I said that my uploads might be a little bit slower or my filming schedule might change a little bit, I wasn't expecting it to change quite that much. I wasn't expecting to just stop uploading altogether. Sorry. I know I said I wouldn't just disappear again, and I did. I am fine. It was just... it's just, you know, when just like loads of things are happening at once and none of them are particularly awful, it's just there's a lot happening. Basically, I had absolutely no energy to really do anything, even read, let alone then film and edit and do all of that. So I'm very sorry, but we're here, we're back. And what we're doing today, because I thought it would be a bit of fun, we are continuing with the Hush Hush series. I have been wanting to continue this series. There was just so many other books that I needed to read, like especially where I didn't really have a lot of energy to read. I had to like prioritize over other things like library loans and ARCs and stuff, and like in the back of my head all the time was just, I want to keep reading it. I want to keep finding out what happens to Patch and Nora and see how much I can grow to hate them. Let me tell you, oh, I can definitely hate them more. I actually have a cover for Crescendo. It's very shiny, so I'll stop shining that. I'm already over halfway through it. I think I'm like 250-ish, 270 pages into it. I'll get you up to speed on where we are. Before I do that though, in case you're new here, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, a couple of months ago, I decided I was gonna reread Hush Hush, which is a book that I, and from the comments, a lot of other people read as teenagers, and it seems like all collectively, none of us really remembered much about the book, just that we kind of liked it. I'd seen a post on TikTok saying that someone had reread it and it was awful, basically. What did they say? They said it was like sexist and a rip-off of Twilight and just like poorly written, so I decided to reread it. Summary was that it was pretty bad. It was quite fun to re-experience, but yeah, it definitely wasn't a good book, and it did kind of also explain a lot of things to me about my tastes in fictional men. If you want to know the whole plot of everything that happens and how we felt about it, then go and watch that before watching this, because I will give you a quick rundown of what you need to know, but I'll be honest, I don't fully remember everything that happened, and I didn't really want to go back and rewatch my own video, the whole thing. In Hush Hush, we meet Nora, our main character. She is 16, I believe, and she's at school. She meets a dude called Patch. He's a new kid, no one knows anything about him. He's got kind of like bad boy energy. They meet in biology class. She hates him. He's just like a flirty, annoying little dick. But of course, she's like really intrigued by him, and so they kind of start. Will they, won't they? But you know, obviously they will. We find out he's a fallen angel, and he's basically there in this school and on Earth to try and kill Nora, because Nora is the descendant of a Nephilim called Chauncey, who is Patch's like sworn Nephilim. In this universe, fallen angels can only possess like designated hosts who have sworn themselves to that fallen angel. They have to be Nephilims, which are half angels, half humans. And Chauncey was like the one that sworn himself to Patch. Chauncey really hates Patch. Patch really hates Chauncey. Chauncey wants to try and kill Patch. Nora is a descendant of Chauncey, but she's not quite like full Nephilim, so she's not immortal. She'll still age and blah, 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 blah. Is this the worst synopsis ever? Yes! Chauncey also then just decides to start hanging out with Nora. He starts like dating her friend V. It was just like the worst friend ever. She was a terrible friend throughout that whole book. She's not so much better so far in Crescendo, but we'll get to it. He starts dating her, but no one realizes that he's Chauncey, and then of course everything happens in the gym at the end where Jules is trying to kill Nora to make Patch unhappy, but he doesn't realize that Nora's descended from him, and if she dies then Patch will get to become human, because that's why he wants to kill Nora. I don't think I mentioned that. And so then she decides she's going to kill herself, but Patch manages to save her. Somehow the act of her doing that still did kill Chauncey, because if a descendant of a Nephilim dies then it will kill. It was confusing. So Chauncey dies, but Nora somehow gets saved, and because Patch saved her, becomes her guardian angel. That is where we left. Crescendo we're picking up not that far after. I'll mention the prologue this time because I didn't mention the prologue last time and it ended up being quite important. So the prologue this time is from the point of view of Nora's dad. By the way, has been murdered as far as we're aware. Nora mentions it frequently throughout the first book. I don't think it happened that long ago, and her mum is still trying to like recover emotionally. Understandable. So he was murdered, but they don't know who did it. The prologue is 14 months ago from Harrison's point of view, and he's basically just having an argument with someone. He has like an old college friend, and they're talking about Nora. We don't know who this friend is, but he hasn't aged since Harrison, which is Nora's dad, and him met in college. And the friend is saying that Nora's in trouble, and once she turns 16, he'll come for her. We don't know who he is, but we can assume it's Patch, because obviously that's what happened. Harrison then leaves, and then he hears a gunshot, so he runs back, and then there's someone else there that's having an argument with whoever was originally there. We also don't know who he's having an argument with, but whoever had an argument with him discovered that Harrison had come back and killed him. And the only description we get is the dark-haired young man, which I think leads me to believe maybe Patch, who has dark hair, killed Nora's dad. But that seems like it would be too obvious, right? If it was Patch that had done it. So maybe it wasn't Patch. That's our prologue. I remember to mention it this time. Let's talk about what's actually fucking happening in this book. I know second books are always more difficult, but this book, I don't think I was this annoyed in the first book. I've been annoyed for most of this so far. All of the characters have got worse, if possible. And I think generally my thoughts are, all of these characters are so obviously teenagers that I can tell why I would have absolutely loved this as a teenager. But now, as a nearly 30-year-old adult, I think all of them need to grow up and just take a step back and reassess what's actually important in life. Honestly, they're also fucking dramatic. The first chapter, Patch and Nora are on a little day at Delphic Beach, which was a key location in the last book. It's the summer. Within 4 pages, we already get some lovely body shaming, which is a frequent theme throughout these books. According to Sugar Magazine, the hottest book of 2010, and I can see a lot of 2010 beliefs and attitudes in it. So we run into Marcy Miller, who's like the mean girl. Nora hates her. Marcy's skirts were 2 sizes too small and 5 inches too short. Her hair was strawberry blonde and she had the shape of a popsicle stick. Turn her sideways and she practically disappears. They like to hate on Marcy because she's too thin. Marcy's also a bitch. There's a lot of things you could hate on Marcy for, but for some reason we have to hate on her weight. Much the same way Marcy, every insult she has towards V is also about her weight. Also a frequent thing is just calling Marcy stupid. Not even a page later. Given her GPA, Marcy was the last person who should be spouting economics. One of the things Marcy also likes to bring up a lot is the fact that Nora's dad is dead. There's this one line. It's supposed to be like, oh, Nora's sad and she's thinking about her dead dad because Marcy reminded her of it, but it just really made me laugh. I took a bite of cheeseburger, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. All I could think of was dead meat. Dead cows, my own dead father.
It was left to me by my dad. The dad that's dead. My father's dead. I have a dead father.
What a weird sentence to write. What a weird way to try and convey that she's sad about her dead dad. I just found that really funny. When they're about to leave, Patch asks if he can come back to her. She says no because her mum's there. Her mum doesn't like Patch. What a surprise. And then she tries to hint about going to his house. She hasn't been to his place yet. She doesn't know where he lives or what it's like. And she's just like thinking, we'd been together 2 months and I still don't know where he lives, and not for lack of trying. 2 weeks into a relationship seemed long enough to be invited over. That was where I was like, God, this is the most teenage thing I've ever read. 2 weeks? Do you know how short a period of time 2 weeks is? Like, I get when you're at school, all you do is go to school, you hang out after school, you go to each other's houses, you know, stuff like that. 2 weeks into a relationship, that's not even a relationship, darling. Why? Why are you making it out that like that's a major milestone? I should have been at his house by now. Calm down. I wouldn't let someone in my house after 2 weeks. And again, I know I'm an adult and I can read this with an adult, fully developed brain, but it just really makes me laugh. So the only other important things that happen on this date are that Nora mentions that she ran into Marcy and she was horrible and they had an argument, and Patch offers to talk to her. Given that I think in the last book, he didn't beat up Marcy, but she thought he's offered to do this before. So he knows the beef, he's on her side about it. That will be relevant for later. The only other important thing that happens on this date is they get back to Nora's house, they're in the car, they're saying goodbye. Nora says she loves him, and Patch just doesn't reply. He doesn't say anything. He's being really weird. It's like he's noticed something and thinks there's someone watching them, but Nora's like, there's no one there. And then he just leaves without saying anything. So she's like, oh my God, I just told him I love him after 2 months. And he hasn't said it back. Like, he's never gonna talk to me again. I'm so embarrassed. That's the only important thing, really, that happens on the date.
That is not correct.
The next day, it's first day of summer school. Nora doesn't have her car anymore because her mum had to sell it because they don't have enough money. We'd usually get a ride places with V. For whatever reason, V can't drive her today. So she's like, shit, I'm gonna be really late. I've overslept. And she's like trying to hitchhike to school. Who pulls over but Marcy Miller? Unfortunately, Marcy Miller is a significant character, more so than she was last time. She offers Nora a lift, but then she says something about V. Yeah, she says, guess your fat friend couldn't give you a ride. And then Nora delivers literally the sickest burn. So she's just thinking about how much she'd like to run over Marcy, and then she says, since I couldn't bounce Marcy off my front fender, I did the next best thing. If my dad owned the Toyota dealership, I think I'd be environmentally minded enough to ask for a hybrid. That is the worst insult I've ever heard in my life, Nora. I don't... Anyway, she doesn't get a ride with Marcy. She gets into school. She gets a phone call from her mum saying that an old friend has moved back to town, and this old friend is called Scott, and actually he's a little dick. Everyone is in this book. Him and Nora knew each other when they were children, and he used to force feed her roly-polies, which is, what are they? The little insects. What do we call them? Woodlouses. I think that's what they are. It's a woodlouse, right? He used to force feed her woodlice. Woodlice? Woodlouses. Woodlouses. He used to force feed her woodlouses. So naturally Nora doesn't like him, but because Nora's mum really doesn't like Pat, she's clearly trying to set her up with this Scott dude. So she's like, well, him and his mum are coming over for dinner, so you need to be home. I don't care if you have plans with Pat, you're gonna have dinner with all of us. Then, to make a bad day even worse, Nora walks in to her chemistry class and takes a seat, and then Marcy walks in and there's only one seat left and it's next to Nora. And then just to add an unrealistic cherry on top of the cake, the teacher is like, write your names down on this seating chart. Wherever you're sat right now is where you're going to be sat for the next 8 weeks, so I hope you like your seating partners. In this conversation, Marcy shows a weird interest in Patch. Marcy now has a job in the reception of the school, and she's basically just been looking through students' records. It seems wildly unrealistic, unethical, just bad practice to me for this school to be allowing a student to work in the records office. But we'll skip past that. She noticed that Patch's file is completely empty, as we discovered in the last book, and she's basically like, that's a bit weird, do you know anything about that? And if you refuse to tell me, I feel like the police would be interested to know about this. Nora doesn't say anything. She does ask why Marcy cares, and then Marcy says, because Patch was standing in my driveway last night. And apparently they didn't talk, he was just watching her from the window, and then he left. So obviously Nora's like, what the fuck is my boyfriend doing at this bitch's house? To me, logically, this isn't what's actually going on, as we'll find out later. But to me, in that moment, if I was Nora, I wouldn't be dating Patch in the first place, but let's say I was. No, let's be realistic. If we're talking about me at 16, I absolutely would have been dating Patch. But anyway, she had the whole situation yesterday with Marcy. She told Patch about it. We know Patch is an overprotective weirdo. Why is she surprised that he was in the driveway? If that was me, I'd be like, oh, he was going because he was going to talk to her or maybe like threaten her. He's just being his weird protective self. Like, that would be my first thought. But of course Nora has the, I said I loved him and he didn't respond, so naturally he's gone to hang out with Marcy. I don't know, she's just instantly on the suspicious. When Nora's leaving school, this next part is not relevant at all. It sees a car for sale, which is a Volkswagen cabriolet. I was listening to the audiobook for some of this, and the narrator kept saying cabriolet, and I was like, that's not how you pronounce it, is it? It's cabriolet. You don't pronounce the I. I then googled it and discovered you do in fact pronounce the I, and now I just can't stop thinking about what a silly word cabriolet is. That sounds like an ice lolly or a free drink that you'd have in the summer as a child. Like, oh, it's really hot today. I think I'm gonna have a cabriolet. Doesn't sound like it should be the name of a car, but anyway.
I ain't spending any time on it.
She wants to get this car. She doesn't have enough money, so she's basically saying she wants to get a job, and V is trying to dissuade her from getting a job. Her wanting a job is a significant theme throughout the rest of the book, but it's not a super key detail. They then have a conversation that's really not relevant. However, Fee does say she had a date with a guy the day before, and Nora's asking about him, and you'll never guess who it is, because apparently there's no one in this town that doesn't know Patch in some capacity. It's Rickson, who is Patch's only friend that we know. He's also a fallen angel. He's also a fallen angel, and Patch, like, introduced Fee and Rickson, apparently, which just seems really out of character for Patch, and I don't know why Patch wouldn't have told Nora this, because she's really surprised about it. We literally never see them on page together, and I am, like I said, like 270 pages in. All I'm saying is last time V kept seeing someone off page and we didn't know who it was, there was some dodgy shit going on, because it turned out it was actually Chauncey. It's just a little bit weird, it's a little bit suspicious. Then we get to the bit that I think annoyed me the most and just then sent me on a rampage of annoyance for everything I've read so far after this. Patch comes to Nora's house later. She's immediately on the defensive. She's immediately annoyed at him. She's like, hey, you forgot to call me last night. Where did you end up going? And he's like, you know, just around. And she's like, huh, good to know that Marcy's house is just around. And in all fairness to Nora, as much as I do not like Nora and I find her very annoying, I also don't like Patch, and he is really not helping himself in this situation. She keeps asking questions like, why were you there? I didn't know that you guys even knew each other. Admittedly, Nora, we have no confirmation that they even spoke. In fact, Marcy herself said they didn't speak. So again, if this was me, I would still be of the assumption that he was just going to intimidate her. Not that that's a good explanation. I don't understand why she's so insistent that something's going on between them when they literally didn't even speak. Patch's answers are abysmal. He says he was there because he was taking care of business.
While you were sitting around, waiting, doing niche, I was out making moves.
And then when she tries to get more information out of him, he's basically not saying anything. And she's like, if it was so innocent, why are you not explaining? And he says, well, because what's happening between me and Marcy has nothing to do with us. This just feels like the most exaggerated miscommunication ever. You could just explain. Surely you could just explain. We'll get to my theories later because it's not relevant yet. There is clearly an explanation for what's going on. I think Nora should be able to work out, as long as I'm right. If I'm wrong, then okay, whatever. But there is clearly an explanation for it. Nora's just not picking up. She's just determined to believe that for some reason, Patch suddenly really likes Marcy, even though he's offered to beat her up or threaten her or whatever multiple times. Like, that just makes absolutely no sense, but go off, Nora, whatever. So they have a huge fight, and we discover the reason Patch is here is to tell Nora that Marcy's been stabbed. I'll just read you his explanation. She was caught in the crossfire when a group of fallen angels tried to force Phil to swear fealty, inside the men's room at Beau's Arcade. Then Phil wasn't 16, so they couldn't force him, but they had fun trying. They cut him up pretty bad and broke a few ribs. Enter Marcy. She had too much to drink, walked into the wrong restroom. The fallen angel standing guard pulled a knife on her. She's at the hospital, but they'll release her soon. Flesh wound. Nora's really snarky about it. Patch is basically just saying, like, Marcy is a gossip, but she might remember what she saw, and she's probably going to tell people, and the fallen angels are going to do whatever possible to keep her quiet about it. So he's more concerned about the secret getting out, but of course Nora interprets that as, oh, so you care about Marcy's safety? And then the argument just evolves from there. Patch starts calling her crazy and hysterical, so like, just shut up. At one point, Nora just says, are you as committed to this relationship as I am? I would just like to remind you that they are 16. Well, she's 16. I can't remember how old he is. Obviously, he's older, but he's acting like a 16-year-old boy regardless. This is a 2-month relationship. 2-month relationship. This is, as far as I remember, her first proper relationship. You're a child. Are you as committed to this relationship as I am? All of the stuff, obviously, about being a fallen angel, and I'm assuming being a guardian angel as well, based on her thought train. And the reason Patch wanted to be human is because he can't actually feel things, like physically. If someone were to touch him, he couldn't feel it. One of the things she says, so she's like, can you even feel anything for me? Is this just all fake? Is this just all a bit of fun because you can't feel anything? And it's like, girl, that's not his fault. She's just being really mean. He keeps just calling her crazy and hysterical. But then he starts talking into her mind, and he basically says the archangels don't trust him, and because what caused him to become a fallen angel last time was falling in love with a human, they're keeping an extra close eye on him. And if he falls in love with Nora, he will get sent to hell.
To hell?
So again, in my head, if this was me, okay, he can't tell me he loves me because the archangels are watching, and if they know that, he will be sent to hell. So he can't tell me that, and that's why he was weird. That's why he's being weird. Also, he's just a weird guy. You knew all of this beforehand, Nora. I don't know why you were expecting anything different. It does stop her for a minute, but the conclusion she comes to in the span of about 5 seconds is, well, we just shouldn't be together then because it's never going to be a normal relationship. And I quote, when I kiss my boyfriend, I want to know he feels it. So then they break up. And then I hate to spoil things for you, but a lot of the rest of the book is just Nora questioning, was that the right thing to do? This is just semi-permanent. It was just a fight, right? Like, it was just a one-off. But actually, no, it's better if we're not together. But actually, I really miss him, but I want him back. Like, that's a lot of the rest of the book. Nora just mopes for a while after that. The next important thing that happens is Scott and his mum come around for dinner that night. Nora and his mum, Mrs. Parnell, are like trying to drum up conversation between them. And Nora's mum is like, oh yeah, they used to be such good friends. Oh, you were just telling me earlier how he used to like get you to eat bugs, and isn't that cute? There are 2 things in this pre-dinner conversation I'd like to focus on. This is the first one. I'll just read you. So what she actually says is, Nora told me you used to try to get her to eat roly-polies. Before Scott could defend himself, I said, he used to fry them alive under a magnifying glass, but he didn't try to get me to eat them. He sat on top of me and pinched my nose until I ran out of air and had to hold open my mouth. Then he flicked them inside. Would you like to know what his mum's response is to that? Well, Scott was always very persuasive. He can talk people into doing things they'd never dreamed of doing. Scott probably made the best fried roly-polies on the whole block. Absolutely. Get fucked. You and your son can both leave and never come back.
Bin.
The other thing I'd like to focus on, less serious, they ask what they're having for dinner, and Nora's mum says lasagna, garlic bread, and a jello salad. And now, I appreciate I'm from a different country that this book is set in, but I would like to ask, what the fuck is a jello salad? I assumed that was a dessert thing. Jello is jelly, right? And it's wonderful, but it's a sweet treat that I wouldn't have with lasagna. But then later, they're eating the lasagna, and Scott chewed twice, swallowed, and then said, pass the lasagna? You're having a jelly salad with lasagna. Am I just not understanding what this is? I can't make sense of what that would be. In fact, I'm gonna Google it right now. What is a jello salad? Oh, no. Jello salad. Sorry, I'm sure all of you probably know what this is because I am aware that the majority of my audience is from the US. For those of you who, like me, don't know, Jello salad is an American salad made with flavored gelatin, fruit, and sometimes grated carrots, or more rarely other vegetables. Other ingredients may include cottage cheese, cream cheese, marshmallows, nuts, or pretzels. And then here's a lovely picture of one. But I'm just so confused by the course being listed as dessert or side dish. Here's the thing, right? I personally, and feel free to debate me in the comments on this because I've had debates with many people in my life about this. I think it's wrong, and when I say wrong, I mean on a spiritual level. I feel like this is wrong to have lasagna with chips on the side. I think that's disgusting. I don't mean like taste-wise it would be disgusting. Taste-wise, I can see that both of those things would be fine together. Like, you wouldn't have chips, and when I say chips I mean like fries. You wouldn't have chips with any other pasta dish. Would you have a bolognese with chips on the side? And if you say yes, there is something wrong with you. I don't even think that belongs together. I think that should be a crime. I can't imagine having a sweet jelly-based salad on the side of a lasagna. That was the biggest thing that I took away from that dinner that they had. I was shocked, flabbergasted, aghast. Back to the important parts of what happened. Scott's an asshole. That's the most important part that happens. He's just not being very nice. Like, I don't know how to just, he's just being like a bit of an arrogant asshole. There's like hints that he did something and that's why they've had to move, but no one will say what he did. And his mum clearly doesn't want him to say. He doesn't want anyone to know. And then he goes to the toilet and then the conversation moves to his dad. So his mum and his dad are divorced. Mrs. Parnell mentions that he's a police officer. Nora says, oh, your husband is a police officer? And she responds, ex-husband, rot his soul, which I will say, iconic. Wonderful. I appreciate this woman for that. I don't appreciate her for her entire attitude towards her son, but yeah, good for you. And then Nora hears Scott say that's enough, but he's not in the room. And if you recall, Fallen Angels and the film can speak to people in their minds. And Nora realizes this. She says, I'm pretty sure he'd spoken into my thoughts. No, not my thoughts, his mother's. And somehow I'd overheard. Clearly he's not human. And he has some kind of dark past. He doesn't have high aspirations for himself based on the conversation, and he's just been really rude to everyone. So not a great start. That dinner does, though, make Nora's mum change her plan. She now no longer wants to set Nora up with Scott, which is a positive. But she had, prior to this, already agreed with Mrs. Parnell that Scott would give Nora a ride to school and that Nora would show him around the town. So her mum's like, I'll try and get you out of that. Don't worry, I don't want you hanging around this boy. Then Nora has a dream about Marcy Miller's dad. And this is another instance of Nora just ignoring things. So she has a dream. I couldn't tell you when it occurred because Nora, and I quote, I was definitely dreaming of a time far back in history, but I was at a loss as to when. Most likely England, but it could have been anywhere from the 15th to the 18th century. I understand that you learn different things in history at school than I would have. However, the fashion from the 15th century to the 18th century was so wildly different. Are you seriously telling me you couldn't pinpoint it a little bit? Like, that's wild to me. But it's long ago in the past anyway, and Marcy Miller's dad has gone to an inn somewhere to meet someone, and the innkeeper seems to not really be advising that he goes to meet this person, but he does anyway. He mentions that his son had the plague. I don't think that's really relevant, and we don't really know what happened, but he goes outside to meet this person. He then gets very scared, runs away, and then his cloak gets tangled and he falls and he somehow can't get back up.
I've had a bit of a tumble.
And Nora's trying to help him, and it seems as if he's responding to her, and she's like, no, he can't be responding to me. This is a dream. He can't know that I'm here. And then he says, the angel's coming, which is interesting because he's mentioned that this person specifically wanted to meet him during Heshvan, which is the only time that fallen angels can possess their Nephil host. So we assume that this person is a Nephil, and it is Marcy Miller's dad, she realizes. But Nora, because she's an idiot, is like, I was more disturbed over the fact that I've been dreaming about Marcy's dad than anything. I shoved the dream aside. Nora, that's literally such a hint, right? If he's a Nephil, then that means Marcy is also a descendant of one, and the fact that she then stumbled into that fallen angel meetup and got stabbed is quite a bit more significant. It would also make a lot more sense as to why Patch is having business with her if she is potentially being threatened, or if she's in the same position that you were previously. Please just pay attention to this dream, Nora. That is what I think is going on, by the way. That I think Marcy, unfortunately, is going to be more of a significant character and also has some kind of ancestry related to a Nephil the way Nora does. When Nora wakes up from her dream, she sees a note from her mum saying that she'd managed to talk Scott out of giving her a lift to school. However, he did still want the tour around the town. So then when Nora gets to school, tries to convince V to give him the tour instead because he's got such bad boy vibes, you'll totally love him. You are a bad friend, Nora. This guy was so rude to you. He was rude to his mum. You heard him speak into your thoughts, which suggests that he's either a fallen angel or a Nephil, and you've had bad experience with both of those kinds of people or beings or whatever, and you're just like, yeah, V, go spend time alone with him. You're a bad friend. Luckily V says no, because she has a date with Rickson, and V is just trying to give her suggestions of how she can get out of doing the tour. Nora's just thinking about Scott. She's thinking about the fact that obviously she could hear him, and she's struggling to ignore the nagging suspicion that Scott had spoken into his mum's thoughts. He clearly fucking did. I don't know why you're labeling this a suspicion. And she's questioning okay, maybe that means he's a Nephil. Now here is a sentence that I would like to focus on for a minute. But if he was Nephilim, what was he doing in Coldwater? What was he doing living an ordinary teen life? Becca Fitzpatrick, do you think any teenager would ever think that? A normal teen life? When you're a teen, you're not thinking about yourself as a teen. In fact, most of the time you're thinking you're already an adult, and everyone is ridiculous for thinking you're still a child. You would not think, oh, I have such a normal teen life. Well, that was just a weird thing to write. In my opinion, I didn't like it. Discuss amongst yourself in the comments if you also didn't like it. She does end up calling him to cancel, but then she decides to follow him. Fee goes with her. He just does a load of shopping. Nora thinks she sees her father, who, if you'll remember correctly, because she was thinking about dead cows, is dead. He goes into a toilet and then all of a sudden Scott's there and he's like, why are you following me? I've been able to see you following me for ages. So Nora completely ignores him and says, can you check if my father is in the toilet? Obviously he's not. So then Nora goes into the woman's to see if he's gone in there. He's not. She just starts crying. Scott follows her in and he like kind of asks what's going on. He kind of tries to make her feel a little bit better, but honestly he's not very good at it. And then he asks her to come play pool with him in Springvale. I don't know where that is. And Nora initially says no, but then when she gets back to the house later, there's like a big storm going on, gone dark. She feels like someone's watching her. V is supposed to be staying over, but because she's on a date with Rickson, she's not gonna be over till later. So Nora's like, fuck it. I'm not gonna sit at home on my own. I'll just go play pool with him. So Scott comes and picks her up. When they arrive, he goes to find an ATM so he can get some cash out. Just as Nora's about to walk into the place, guess who's there? Our first creepy stalker appearance from, you guessed it, it's Patch. Patch is suddenly there and he like drags her around. He's like, what are you doing here? This place is rough. You shouldn't be here. And she says she's with Scott and he's like, you definitely shouldn't be with Scott. Scott's Nephilim. Obviously, we already knew that, Patch, but thank you. But apparently he's a first generation purebred, just like Chauncey was. So very powerful. Patch also says that Scott belongs to this like Nephilim society. Their aim is basically to free Nephilim from the bond towards fallen angels, which like seems like a fair cause, to be honest. But the difficulty is if fallen angels are no longer able to possess their Nephilims, then they'll then go to possessing humans, and humans aren't as powerful as Nephilim, so they'll just die after a few days of being possessed. And they still have to have like an agreement from the person, like a bond, to be able to possess them, and fallen angels won't really want to go to the effort of convincing someone only for them to die a few days later. So like it causes a lot of problems for fallen angels, but I'm not really seeing a lot of problems from other people. Maybe they could just stop possessing people. That might be a solution, which, to be fair, is Nora's response too. First time ever I've agreed with Nora. Patch continues to try and convince her to go home. Nora gets so annoyed that she tells him she doesn't want him to be her guardian angel anymore, because Nora just loves to make snap decisions in the moment. And this is purely done just because she wants to hurt Patch. He tells her to take it back. She won't, so then he just gives her a load of cash and says that if anyone tries to hurt her while they're in pool plays, to throw the money on the table and run out, because they'll all want the money and not her. She gets inside. We discover Scott has money problems, or he has gambling problems, because you have to put down $100 to play a game. He already owes the place too much money, so they won't let him pay, so Nora uses the money Patch gave her so they can play. He's trying to have a little joke around with her, and she notices Patch is across the room. And then who walks up behind him but Marcy Miller? She walks up, she like puts her arms around him. Nora is of course devastated by this sight. She's so upset. And then some dude walks in a red shirt and he has a gun and he is basically saying he wants everyone's money. Scott immediately is like, no, that's our money, you're not taking our money. So then the guy aims the gun at Scott. Nora's like, what the hell is going on? And also, why isn't Scott just taking the gun off him? Does he not know he's in the film? And so he can't die. He could just take it and he'd be fine. Someone throws a chair at the guy and then just like chaos. Some people are like trying to get him. Nora manages to run out. Patch gives her the keys to his car and is like, just go. Patch explains that the guy has a brand on him that is the mark of the society that he was talking about earlier, the like Nephilim blood society, which means he's like bad news. But then just as he turns away, Nora's like, wait, where are you going? And Patch is like, Marcy's still inside. I can't just leave her there. So then of course Nora's really upset again. And she's like, I thought you were my guardian angel. And he's like, not anymore. And then as she's driving off, she's thinking, he wasn't my guardian angel anymore. Was he serious? All because I told him that's how I wanted it. If you didn't want him to stop being your guardian angel, you shouldn't have fucking told him that you didn't want him to be anymore. Why are you surprised that he's just doing what you told him to do? He comes to pick up the car later. We get a reminder of how short this period of time is. He climbs in, closes us into the Jeep together. 2 nights ago, the gesture would have felt intimate. It's been 2 days. It's been 2 days since they broke up. She keeps like acting like, oh, I know I should just stop thinking about it. I know I should be over it by now. But then on the other hand, she's like, I can't believe Patch is moving on, even though I broke up with him and I told him I didn't want him to be my guardian angel anymore. It's been 2 days. Like, just give it a minute. Just give it a minute. 2 days is nothing. And then of course Nora's like, and Marcy? And Patch doesn't really give her much, but it's not too much of an argument. She tells him about the dream she had about Marcy's dad, and Patch seems interested in this and slightly concerned that she had a dream about Marcy's dad, but he doesn't say anything. And again, Nora doesn't think any more of it, even though she notices that he's interested about it. So clearly it means something, or it could be important. It's just another day in the life of Nora Grey, just picking up on signals and then pretending they don't exist. Then the next day in chemistry, Marcy invites Nora to her annual summer party, which from the sounds of it, sounds like on the same scale as Lydia's birthday parties in Teen Wolf. It's like the party, and if you're invited, that means you're cool. Nora, I don't think reacts the way I would if this was me in this situation. So she's just like accepting this at face value for a while, and then says in her head, okay, hold on, why was Marcy inviting me? Even though my IQ was double hers, she had to have noticed the frost between us. What are you talking about? The frost between you? You guys are constantly insulting each other. You actively hate each other. Why are you acting like you've just had like a mild falling out? But then Marcy is saying like, oh, you know, last night that was crazy, right? At the pool place. She's like making comments like, oh, did you see like with the pool stick? Like he shoved it through the pool table. I've never seen someone do that before. Aren't those like made of slate? And to me, it seems like she's trying to get information to see if Nora knows something, or like how much Nora knows. That's how this reads to me, which again suggests to me that Marcy does know more than Nora thinks, but Nora's just writing her off because Nora's IQ is double hers. And we have a little bit of an interaction with V and Nora when V is kind of upset because she's found out that Nora and Patch split up and Nora didn't actually tell her. But her response is just like, oh, did you not tell me because you knew I'd just say that I was right and you should have never dated him? Because again, V and Nora are not actually good friends, and I don't know why they're convinced they're best friends, because they're just horrible to each other. Case in point, literally the next page, they're at the beach after school and V says about getting some donuts because it's been an hour since she last ate, which I think is supposed to be like a sly comment of like, oh my god, it's only been an hour and she's already hungry again. I fucking hate it. I hate it so much. And then Nora says, I thought you were trying to lose weight for swimsuit season. V basically says she's just gonna eat one donut, and Nora's response in her head is, I'd never seen V just eat one donut, but I kept my mouth shut. Why are you being so judgmental of your friend? You guys are supposed to be friends. Stop being horrible to each other. 2, whoever only eats one donut. Like, that's completely normal. Donuts are small, airy treats. Eat multiple. Eat as many fucking donuts as you want.
And I think people should eat more cake if they want. Don't if you don't.
And why does this have to be a constant topic of conversation anyway? Literally, why does it matter? When they get into the donut place, Scott's there. This conversation, I think, really highlights just how awful Scott is and why I don't understand how even after this point, Nora continues to speak to him and hang out with him. Scott asks her about Patch and she says, oh, we broke up. Scott's advice on the situation: forget Patch, move on. Find some guy who's into the same stuff you are, studying chess, collecting and classifying dead bugs, and give some serious thought to dyeing your hair. Excuse me, let's be honest, redheads are a liability. I don't have red hair. Could be worse, could be orange, wicked witch orange. Is that supposed to be an insult? If you're saying orange hair makes me look more like a witch, I'll go dye my hair orange right now. Anyway, continuing the conversation. I don't play chess and I don't collect insects, but you study. I know you do. I know the type. The hallmark of your entire persona is defined by 2 words: anal retentive. You're just another standard OCD case. I hate this man. For some reason, Nora's reaction to this, rather than to be like, you literally don't know me at all. You used to hold me down and force me to eat insects, and all I've seen of you so far is you being rude. I'm gonna stop talking to you. Goodbye. Instead, she says, okay, what's something you don't think I'd do? And he says, go to Battle of the Bands. I don't know why Battle of the Bands is perceived as something so outrageous. But anyway, that's what he picks. And she's like, fine, I'll go with you. Why are you trying to prove yourself to this man? You don't like him. You keep saying you don't want to spend time with him. I fully get the pettiness. If someone tells me I can't do something, I'm doing it 100% just to prove them wrong. I'm doing equally on the reverse side. If someone tells me I should do something, I'm not doing it. It is a bit of an issue. I am aware of that. But anyway, I get the pettiness. But for a boy like this, it's not worth it. It's never going to prove anything. Don't do it. Ignore them. They don't deserve energy and time. Nora, her justification for this is, I wasn't going to stand here and let him call me boring, and I definitely wasn't going to let him call me a redhead. When V comes back, they're sat eating, and the waitress comes over and says, oh, a guy told me to give this to you. It is an envelope with a ring inside it, which I think has like a fist on it, an iron ring, and the crown of the ring where a stone typically sat had the raised stamp of a hand. And the note just says, the ring belongs to the black hand. He killed your dad. They immediately go and start questioning this waitress. Who gave it to you? What did he look like? Blah, 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 blah. This waitress doesn't remember anything, and V gets quite annoyed, and Nora has to tell her to come away. Nora then goes to study at Enzo's, which is a food place that they went to quite a few times in the first book. It's made a reappearance. She goes there, she studies, and she does some research on the Black Hand. She doesn't really come up with anything that's even remotely relevant, so she decides to tell herself it was just a prank, and again, doesn't think any more on it. When she gets home, she's just like in her comfy, she's just had a shower, she has wet hair, and then Scott turns up and she's like, oh shit, I forgot. I said I'd go to Battle of the Bands with him. But she pretends she hadn't forgot, and they still go. He gives her a fake ID so they can get in, and she is scandalized by this, absolutely scandalized. He drops her off up the front so he can go park, and then she calls V, who she's also roped into coming to try and work out where she is. They're still a little bit out, her and Rickson, so she walks to go and meet them, and again, she sees a man she thinks is her dad, so for some reason she follows him. It sounds like an industrial estate. It's quite empty, it's quite abandoned. He walks into this warehouse, so she goes to follow him because like that's a normal thing to do. This whole bit that I'm about to read makes no sense to me. I can understand someone who has lost their father would probably lack reason at times if they thought they'd saw him and just go after it. I think the reason I can't is one, because I hate Nora, and two, I can't imagine being that motivated to ever see my father. So it doesn't connect with me, you know?
Are you a child of divorce?
But she follows him. She's like calling his name. Well, she's calling Dad. That's his name to her, I suppose. Here's a voice in her head saying the back entrance. So she starts walking towards it, and then she hears a voice again, and it's her dad's voice in her head saying, Nora, we're not alone. Someone else is here. Go back. And her response is, no, I need to see you. And then she hears a voice again. The back door is unlocked. I touched my head, feeling his words echo there. Something was different about his voice this time, but not noticeable enough to place a finger on it. It's clearly not your father. Even if the first voice was your father, that's not. If you've noticed something different and he was saying don't come in and now he's trying to lure you inside, obviously that's not your father, Nora. Then the next time she hears the voice in her head is, come inside, I won't hurt you. Come, Nora. Would you not stop and think? Why would my dad feel the need to say he won't hurt me? They had a very good relationship from the sounds of it. Why would he feel the need to say that? Maybe this isn't my father. She just goes anyway. And then she sees him through the window and she puts her hand on the window, and then suddenly his hand is also around hers and she's like stuck there. And then there's an image of a knife in her head, and then she feels like she's being cut open. All of this sounds so familiar to when she was having like mind games played on her by Chauncey in the first book. And I don't know how she's not connecting it and realizing that the same thing is happening. She gets scared, she starts shouting for V, V's not around, she shouts Patch's name, and then everything stops. All of the pain, and her hand is absolutely fine, and then she runs back. She tells V that she thinks she saw her dad again, but she doesn't tell her obviously anything else because V doesn't know anything else. She does start thinking about potentially someone's messing with her mind, like a fallen angel and a Phil or Dad's ghost. And then she sees Marcy getting into Patch's car, and so she stops thinking about all of that because Patch is more important, clearly. Nora wants to go home. V manages to convince her to go inside. They go in and they're sitting like at the bar having a cherry coke, even though they've got fake IDs, because for some reason in this book, and like, look, I know it must maybe be like a little bit of a difficult line to walk as like a true young adult, like teen author, being realistic but not encouraging bad behavior, but every single time alcohol is involved in this book, Nora's like, no, I don't drink, which, okay, probably a good thing, but just doesn't feel realistic to me in the slightest, especially being from the UK. Where everyone starts drinking at such a young age, which is obviously not a good thing. I know that's not a good thing. I can look back at how much I drank as a teenager and be like, ooh, no, not good. And I wouldn't do that now. However, I suppose I did get it all out of my system quite young. It just feels very unrealistic, especially if you've got fake ID. If you've got fake ID, use it. What are you doing? They're sat at the bar and guess who walks over? Fucking Marcy, which doesn't really make sense to me because we just saw her get in Patch's car and drive off, but now suddenly she's back and in the bar. She's wearing Patch's hat and she comes over and is smelling it and it's like, oh, doesn't he smell amazing? She's obviously trying to get under Nora's skin. And then V and Marcy have one of their classic arguments. V keeps calling her cheap, Marcy keeps calling V fat. V hits her a couple of times. Nora then gets in between them and is like, guys, stop, this isn't you. They don't listen. V goes to throw a drink at Marcy. Marcy goes to run out of the way but falls over, and then she like kicks Nora's legs out from beneath her and they fight. She's like hitting her on the floor. Nora then manages to get up somehow and like just punches her until Patch pulls Nora away. He pulls her away, gives her to V, they leave, and then a weird moment happens where this really isn't relevant to the story at all, but I reread it a few times. It's like, what? When one of the drinks was thrown, it went over all of them. So all of them are soaked in cherry coke. And once they get outside, V says that was exciting. Nora says, oh yeah, sure. And then V licked my arm. You taste pretty good. You're making me thirsty, smelling like cherry coke and all. What? Why did you just randomly lick her arm in that conversation? It really threw me off. V once again says that Nora just needs a new boyfriend. And then Nora's like, why does everyone think I need a new boyfriend? One person, Nora, one person has said that. Stop being so dramatic, please. It's tiring. When Nora gets home, she goes to sleep. And then she thinks she wakes up in the middle of the night hearing someone breaking into the house. She hears the lock on the front door opening. And the best weapon she can come up with is a pair of tights, which I assume she intends to use as like a garrote. Tights are really stretchy. I feel like that's the worst item you could have chosen. But anyway, she gets it around this person's neck and it turns out it's Patch. But it also turns out Patch isn't actually there. He is in her dream. And Nora is thinking, was I dreaming about him? Or did he actually know he was here? Were we sharing the same dream? And I would just like to say this is the second occasion where Nora has been very aware of the fact that she's dreaming. And I would just like Nora to do a little bit of research into dreams, because when you know you're dreaming and the dream is still continuing, it's not the same. I don't know why I just wagged my finger so aggressively. It's not the same as just having a normal dream. If you are lucid, if you are aware that you are dreaming and everything feels normal, clearly something is happening outside of a normal dream. I can't believe you're not aware of this. I just wish Nora would think about things more. In this dream that Patch is visiting, they have another argument about Marcy, of course, because that's all they fucking talk about. Patch does say she's not as bad as you're making her out to be, which I feel like was a stupid thing for him to say, but it also leads me to believe that she is probably part of the angel world in some way. They have an argument and then all of a sudden they start kissing, because of course they do. Bearing in mind at this point, what, it's been like 3 days since their argument. I guess fine, they're over it now.
But not for long!
She accidentally touches where his wings would be on his back. She gets sucked into his memories, and what memory does she see? She sees him giving Marcy a lift home after the fight. Marcy is complaining. Patch really isn't giving her anything. He is not really responding, much more than like a few words. But then Marcy kisses him and he starts pulling back and then stops. So then obviously Nora comes out of the memory and is like, you kissed Marcy. And all Patch says is, it's complicated. So again, we've just gone back to the stupid miscommunication. Just fucking say what's happening, please. But then he says something. And again, I think this is where Nora's just not thinking, because she says, what do you even hope to get out of a relationship with her? His eyes flickered to mine. Not love. I would like to know, if this is just me, I would like to know how you would interpret him saying that if you were Nora, because her interpretation of it is Marcy was about cheap satisfaction, self-satisfaction. He really did see all of us as conquests. He was a player. Every girl was a new challenge, a short-term hookup to broaden his horizons. So she thinks because he says he's not going to find love with Marcy, he doesn't want love with anyone, and he was just playing her. That is not how I interpreted that at all. Him saying he's not going to find love with her, to me, suggests he's not going to find love, and therefore he's not going to be sent to hell.
To hell?
However, with Nora, he did find love, or he would find love, and therefore he would be sent to hell. That is clearly what he was trying to say. Like, he could have said it better. Would anyone else have interpreted it like that? Is that just me? Because I think that's really clear. And, like, admittedly, she's obviously very upset. She's just found out that he's kissed Marcy, and like all of her doubts are maybe true. I can understand her jumping to that conclusion in this instance. I'm trying to be a little bit less angry. I just think, again, she's jumping to conclusions and she needs to take a moment to think. You know? She then, I forgot to mention this because I completely forgot it was relevant. It's not really that relevant. When they had the initial conversation in the car 3 days ago, Nora said she loved Patch and he didn't say anything back. Prior to her saying that, he had given her a necklace that he always wears. So in return, she gave him her father's ring. She gave him her father's ring. He gave it to her the week before he died. And at the time, Patch was like, I can't take this from you, it's too sentimental. But this was like supposed to be their display of love to each other. Anyway, I'll explain why I'm surprised in a minute. He rips the necklace off of herself in the dream and gives it back to Patch and says, I want my ring back. And he says no. He refuses to give it back to her. And now I'm just thinking, there was the ring with the hand on it, right? That got given to her, which is obviously part of this Nephilim gang. I'm assuming it's part of this Nephilim gang because they all have the branding on them. Oh wait, we haven't got to that part yet. Sorry, spoiler. It's part of the Nephilim gang. Because obviously her dad would also be related to Chauncey. Was he part of it? Is that why Patch won't give it back? Or is he just being sentimental emo boy? That's something that I hadn't even thought about till right now. When she wakes up, then she doesn't have the necklace anymore. So she realizes like at least some part of the dream must have been true and like somehow based in reality. I don't really know how that would work. Patch can now visit her in her dreams. Spoiler alert, it doesn't seem like he does it again, but we'll find out. The next day after school, Nora goes to the library. V comes by a little bit later and she's like, here, this is for you. A black envelope with a note in it. V then just leaves. She leaves the keys for Nora and says she can just take her car home. When V's gone, Nora opens up the envelope and it has a very distinct, strong smell. It's been sprayed with some kind of perfume. Then she reads the card, which just says, I was a jerk last night, forgive me. So she assumes it's from Patch. The librarian then is like, we're closing soon. So she starts packing up her stuff, goes to pick up something that she sent to the printer. And then all of a sudden she starts feeling really sleepy and just really, really off. And she just like falls and she's like, shit, the perfume. The next thing she knows, it's dark. She wakes up in the library, she checks the time. It's like 11 o'clock. She's been asleep for a very long time. She's like, shit, how am I gonna get out? No one's here. She's been locked in this room. I don't know how the librarian didn't come back and check. Like, did they not do a check of the place before they actually lock it? She's thinking that she's been drugged, that maybe Patch has drugged her for some reason. Which again, I know makes logical sense given that she thinks he gave her the note, but his name also wasn't on it. And why would he drug her? Like, literally why? But anyway, as she's trying to think about how to get out, here's the lift starting to come up. And then she just like has this memory of when she was little. There was suddenly a dog there that seemed like it wanted to eat her or something, and she heard a voice in her mind saying, don't move. So she didn't. She just stayed still, and then the dog got bored and ran away. And she asked her dad about it after, and her dad was like, that was instinct. And she's like, instinct was speaking to me now. And it said, get out. Nora, how are you so stupid? That wasn't instinct. That was your dad speaking to you in your head. And maybe he's now speaking in your mind, telling you to get out, or maybe someone else is, or maybe you are actually having an instinctive moment. I don't know about right now. Back in the past, that's what was happening. Regardless, she listens to this instinct and she throws a computer monitor through a window so she can get out. She jumps out into the hall and like manages to make a run to it, get into her car and drive away. However, whoever this person was, they get in their car and start following her. Eventually, she manages to lose them and she immediately calls V. She's immediately like, who else touched the card? V explains that she bumped into Rickson before going into the library. Patch was in the car as well, and Patch gave the note, and just something in me tells me that's not what actually happened. But that's what V thinks happened, that's what she says happened, and she's just as confused. The next evening, however, is Marcy's party. V and Nora have decided they're going to do some snooping in Marcy's bedroom. They are going to try and get definitive proof that Marcy and Patch are together, and V suggests stealing her diary because for some reason it's just public knowledge across the school that Marcy has been keeping a diary since she was very young and she carries it everywhere with her. I feel like someone else would have stolen that diary by now and read it aloud to the whole class, but regardless, their plan is to steal it at this party. They manage to sneak upstairs. Well, Nora does. V like keeps watch while Nora's inside. She does manage to find the diary, and she also finds Patch's hat, which she takes as well. But then Marcy's dog runs upstairs, of course, and starts barking. So Nora has to climb out the window, and I think she's like perched on what would be like, I don't know, like a porch roof or something. I couldn't really tell. When V eventually does manage to distract Marcy to get her and the dog out of the room, Nora goes to go back inside, and Marcy has locked the bedroom window. So she is just stuck there. Just luckily. Who is walking past? You're never gonna guess. Of course it's Patch. Patch catches her and then offers to drive her home, and she's like, no, but then she's also like, my mum's not home, so we would have time to speak on our own at home. Even though she's insistent that she wants nothing to do with him, he feels like a shift in the atmosphere again, and she's like, oh, something's here. Is it the archangels? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, don't we need to be careful then? Because they might send you to hell.
To hell?
He starts talking into her head, basically saying like, we could go on the run. We could just like ignore the angels. We could go wherever and like just try and evade them. And eventually they'll catch up to me. But I've done so many awful things that I deserve to go to hell anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Nora is like hooked in for a minute, but then she like starts crying. She's like, no, but you'd end up in hell and I don't want to do that. And then she just walks home. I forgot to mention this. At some point, V finds out there's a job going at Enzo's, the place they quite often go to eat. But I don't remember when that was. Nora now has a job interview there, and she gets the job ridiculously easily, unrealistically easily. Bear in mind, I suppose this was 2010. The job market was very different. She just walks in and says, oh, I heard you had a position for a barista. The person says, oh no, we already filled that, sorry. But I do need a, like, it's basically a waitress, but she doesn't call it a waitress. I need a waitress. Have you got any experience? Nora has no experience. So she says, well, I know the menu off by heart because she eats there all the time. Perfect, when can you start? No ID checks? I get it was a lot easier back in the day to get a job, but it wasn't that easy. But anyway, she starts later that evening. She then has the misfortune to be like assigned to the table of Marcy Miller and her friends, and for some reason Marcy thinks it would be like a really humiliating thing to get Nora to sing happy birthday to her, because apparently they do that in this restaurant. So Nora does, but clearly apparently she sings quite well. Like, well, that was boring and not embarrassing.
Been singing all my life, all around the towns and everything.
Marcy mentions that she is going to be going to Delphic later to meet up with Patch for a party. She obviously says it to be a little bitch. Nora just pretends she doesn't care, but then who comes in a little bit later? It's not Patch this time, it's Scott. And he's like, oh, loads of people are going to the beach later, do you want to come with me? So she says yes, because she knows Patch might be there and she might get to see Patch. So just by her saying she doesn't care and she doesn't want to see him anymore, she absolutely does. Although at this point she was also starting to think like maybe Scott's okay, like he's not as bad as she thought. Don't really know why she's thinking that, because he's been nothing but rude. She meets up with Scott, they have a little talk, they have a little bit of heart to heart, and we find out basically I don't know why I'm laughing at this, it's not funny. We find out Scott's an alcoholic. They have quite a deep conversation about it. She says like, why don't you quit drinking? And he says, quit? You kidding? My life sucks when I'm only half aware of it. If I quit drinking and saw what it's really like, I'd probably jump off a bridge. When I'm wasted, I can almost forget who I am. I know I'm still here, but only barely. It's a good place to be. And then she's basically saying like, my life isn't that great either. And he's like, oh, your dad, because he's dead. Like that cow you were eating earlier. He says how like, it's not your fault. And she's like, I know, that makes it worse, because if it is my fault, I'd feel really guilty about it. But maybe eventually I could move on, but I have no idea what happened, and that's really hard. Then it starts raining, so everyone's like, oh, we have to leave. And Scott, because he's drunk, is like, everyone come back to my place. Here's my address. The door's unlocked. Just come in. We'll have a party at mine. When they get back, he's like, oh, I don't actually want to go inside. I don't want to go inside. The carpet smells like dog urine. He would say piss. He would say it smells like dog piss. He would not say urine. No teenage boy is saying that. But he basically says like, I don't want like everyone else here now. I've kind of changed my mind. Can you tell everyone to leave? And she says no, obviously. And then he just throws up everywhere. So she helps him inside. She says she'll get him some water, and then when she goes downstairs, you'll never guess who's there. It's Patch, of course, and they have a little chat. He is once again annoyed that she's hanging out with Scott. He also once again tries to like subtly say like, let's go, let's just run away. And then they end on the somewhat civil note of Patch being like, look, can you just be careful? She goes to bring Scott the water, but then he's just like ambled his way downstairs and he just kisses her. And she says he tastes like mouthwash and freshly scrubbed teeth. I don't care if he's just brushed his teeth. That boy threw up less than 5 minutes ago. Have some self-respect, Nora. She then just gets into it and starts kissing him back, and it gets all heated, and then they go upstairs. She's instantly having regrets immediately as soon as he starts undressing, and she's like, how am I gonna find an excuse to get out of this situation? But then guess who's there? Patch comes upstairs and basically threatens Scott and is like, if you ever touch her, I'm gonna kill you. He doesn't actually say that, but that's the vibe. Nora apologizes afterwards and like, sorry about him, it was awkward. And then, I mean, he is drunk. No, I'm not making excuses. He essentially tries to coerce her. Luckily, she notices a mark on him. The same mark that that dude in the red shirt and the gun had. The branding of that Nephilim blood society. And she's like, what's that? I don't know why she's surprised, because she already knew he was part of the society because Patch had told her that. But anyway, she asks him about it. He just says like, oh, it's some friends, I don't want to talk about it. And then she says, but that's the same mark that's on a ring that got delivered to me that said that person killed my dad, called the Black Hand. And then he gets really defensive. He's like, how do you know that person? Are they here? Do they know where I am? Do they know that I'm here as well? And we essentially find out that the bad thing that he did back home, he got into some debt gambling. The manager of the place he was gambling at kept like trying to get the money back, naturally. Then one day on his way home from work, he got jumped. He just figured whoever this guy was, the manager, had sent him to get the money back. Apparently, this guy then said he didn't care about money and he'd already settled all of Scott's debts, and he introduced himself as the Black Hand. And then he just brands it. Scott starts screaming, so the Black Hand breaks one of his fingers and is like, if you don't shut up, I'll break all the rest of them. Scott was so scared, he wet his pants. He would have said he pissed his pants, but anyway, this is a traumatic story, so I will let him off on that one. That's why they moved back. So clearly this guy just let Scott go afterwards and didn't tell him anything about it. Nora tries asking him more information. What did he look like? Did he say why he gave you the mark? Do you know that you're in a Nephilim? But Scott's passed out. So she just leaves. And that, my friends, is where I got to. Things I am curious about. Mainly, I'm curious about what the hell's in Marcy Miller's diary, because we stole that a while ago and we still haven't looked at it. We still don't know what's in it. So I would really like to know what's in there. I would like to know if she is in fact part of the angel circle, or if she's Nephilim. I feel like she probably is. I'd like to know how this is going to be resolved with Patch maybe going to hell. There are 2 more books after this, so I feel like this is going to be fucking drawn out for a really long time. I think I've only got like a little bit over 100 pages left. We'll see what else happens. We are back. It's a new day. I ended up reading, I think it was like another 100 pages yesterday. I had actually intended to finish the book yesterday. I think I've only got, I think it's like 50 pages left, so we will definitely finish today. But let me bring you up to speed on where we are, because some shit's happened. So the next day, Nora's woken up by a call from V saying they should go to the beach later. Nora doesn't really want to go because V's going with Rickson and she doesn't want to be like third wheeling, but she does end up going. Nora, while they're there, finally tells V that she's got Marcy's diary, and V's like, why have you not read it yet? My thoughts exactly, why are we not reading this diary? But Nora basically decides she's not going to read it, she's just going to go give it back. She's deciding to take the high ground, which is boring as fuck. And V's like trying to convince her to read it and say like she'll just know once and for all about Marcy and Pat. Nora is like, but if I read it again, I might never want to speak to Patch again. Which V thinks is a good thing, and she's trying to convince Nora, saying like, read the diary, get some closure, there are other guys out there. To which Nora says, I know, I said, but it felt like a cheap lie. There had never been a guy before Patch. How could I tell myself there'd be one after? Girl, you are 16. There will be other guys. Based on how this kind of book goes, there probably won't be other guys. If we're talking about in real life, you are 16, there'll be so many other guys. This little arsehole you will look back on in your adult life and you will be like, wow, how did I not see how much of an arsehole he was? I know from personal experience that is what happened. I will give her some grace. I do remember being a teenager, I'm sure you guys do. It feels like the be all and end all. Your relationships, that they are very all-consuming. Your life in general, everything that happens is all-consuming, and you can't see past it at all that anything is ever gonna change. God, wasn't it horrible? As much as I can read this and be like, Nora, grow up, I do remember what that was like. Rickson comes over. V like goes off to get, I don't know, like ice creams or something, because she's like, Rickson, Nora wants to talk to you about Patch, which Nora doesn't want to do, but they do end up having a conversation. We find out Patch is still assigned to Nora as her guardian angel, but he's just like working behind the scene. Nora is basically asking how she can get him to not be her guardian angel anymore, and Rickson does tell her there's like this thing you can do where you cut your hand and let the blood go into the earth or something, and then you say you don't want them as your guardian angel, or you say like you take control of fate yourself and you won't hold heaven accountable to anything bad that happens to you. But Rickson strongly advises her against doing that, because the very fact that she's been assigned a guardian angel suggests that she's in some kind of danger, so it would be kind of stupid to do that. And then Nora has a weird moment. She's like, okay, yeah, but what if the person who wants to kill me is Patch? And I don't get why she's thinking that. All you think is that he's with Marcy. Why do you suddenly think he wants to kill you? Rickson does say Patch would never do that, and then she kind of moves on from that a little bit. And then Nora asks if Patch is happy with Marcy, and I'm gonna read the answer that Rickson gives, and I want you to form your interpretation of what you think that means, and then I'll read Nora's interpretation of what that means, and we'll see if they match up. I'm gonna assume they won't. Rickson watched me, clearly giving his answer some thought. Patch is the closest thing I've got to family. I love the guy like a brother, but he's not right for you. I know it, he knows it, and deep down, I think you know it too. Maybe you don't want to hear this, but he and Marcy are alike. They're cut from the same cloth. Patch should be allowed to have a little fun, and he can. Marcy doesn't love him. Nothing she feels for him is going to tip off the archangels. What would your interpretation of that be if he said that to you? Because my interpretation of it would be the same as my interpretation of everything Patch has said throughout this book, which is that he loves Nora, or at least he is going to love Nora. He can see himself falling in love with Nora, and so that is why their relationship is dangerous. Was that your interpretation as well? If it was different, let me know. Here's Nora's interpretation. We sat in silence, and I struggled to stuff my emotions deep down. I'd tipped off the archangels. In other words, my feelings for Patch were what exposed us. It was nothing Patch had done or said, it was all me. According to Rickson's explanation, Patch had never loved me, he'd never reciprocated. Literally, where in anything that he said does it suggest that? Where? What I hear is he's okay with Marcy because he doesn't love her. He's not right for you because he does love you. How have you jumped to that conclusion, Nora? This entire book has just been her interpreting everything wrong and jumping to the wildest of conclusions when there is no evidence to support what she's thinking. We then move on to the more important part of this conversation, where Nora asks Rickson if he's ever heard of the Black Hand, and Rickson says, is that a joke? I haven't heard that name in a long time. I thought Patch didn't like to be called it. Did he tell you about it then? So obviously Nora freaks out about this because she got a note saying the Black Hand killed your dad.
The dad that's dead, my father's dead. He's not a dead father.
And then she starts thinking back on when she gave Patch her dad's ring, and he was adamant that he couldn't take it, and she's like, oh, that's because he killed my dad. And then she suddenly is like, I need to get that ring back. So she does a little bit of mild sleuthing to get Patch's address out of Rickson. She pretends she's been there before, but it was dark and she can't quite remember exactly where it was and how to get there. And he, for some reason, just believes this at face value. He doesn't see anything weird about this, and he just gives her the address. She pretends that she left a jumper there and it belonged to her dad and she wants it back, but she doesn't want to see Patch face to face, so she also gets Rickson somehow to tell her when Patch will be out. I don't really know if that's a very good friend. You're saying he's like a brother to you and you're happily giving this girl his address and information about when he'll be out so she can break into his house. That seems a bit sus. She finds out he won't be in later because him, Rickson, Marcy, and V are all gonna watch a film together. Now, at first I was like, this is just further confirmation that V is the worst friend ever and these two shouldn't be friends, but V doesn't know that Marcy's gonna be there. Her and V leave the beach. V, because she's an idiot and didn't put any sun cream on and just slathered herself in baby oil, has heat stroke from the sounds of it, and also her feet have all blistered because she got so sunburned. Idiot. They get back to V's car and it's been clamped because she parked somewhere she wasn't supposed to, and then they just happen to see Patch's Jeep across the road. Nora's like, let's just take the Jeep. She doesn't think she has a key at that point, but because she's seen Patch steal a car once before, she's like, yeah, we'll just steal his car. She's obviously really mad because she thinks he killed her dad, and she goes a little bit insane. She goes to like javelin throw a umbrella through his window so they can get into the car before V thankfully stops her. And then she realizes she has a spare key to his car that she stole from Marcy's room. I don't know if I just forgot that or it just wasn't mentioned on page, but she does have a spare key, so they get in and they drive off. And later that evening when she's at home, she's making dinner, and then she turns around and Patch is just there, and he's obviously quite angry because she stole his car. And he's like trying to see what is actually going on because he doesn't believe this is just about Marcy anymore, but obviously she doesn't want to say that she knows he's the Black Hand. Just as Patch is about to walk out, Nora asks him if he knows who killed her dad. He doesn't really let on anything, and then she just says, "You're the Black Hand, aren't you?" This is another moment where Nora had not planned to say anything and she just says it because she's stupid. Patch literally has like no reaction. He's just like, "Who told you that?" And then he doesn't really say anything else. Nora starts crying and tells him to get out, and he does. Nora then firstly goes to Marcy's to drop off the diary because obviously she thinks Marcy will be out, but guess what? Marcy's not out. Patch cancelled on her, so she's home and she sees that Nora has the diary and she just assumes that Nora's read it. She just starts saying things that are in there. She's like, "What did you think about the bits that I wrote about you?" We find out that what Marcy had been writing was about Nora's mum's affair, alleged affair. Marcy says that Nora's mum and her dad, Marcy's dad, have been having an affair for years. They knew each other in high school, they like went out and it never stopped. I suppose she kind of has proof. She says she's seen her mum's car parked down their street multiple times. She's seen them together, but Nora obviously just doesn't want to believe her. Marcy also says that means that my dad could be your dad. We could be sisters. And this made me realize something that I had thought when I was reading the prologue, but I didn't say it because when I went back and reread my annotations, I was like, no, that was just me reading into things too much. That was me being stupid. Should have trusted myself, and I just need you to trust me that I did think this. This is on page 6 in the prologue when we see Nora's dad interacting with this person that he's known since he was at college, which I now assume must be Marcy's dad, who hasn't aged at all. We already know at this point that most likely her dad is Nephilim. There was just a specific part where they were talking about Nora. They were talking about obviously her being in danger. Who we assume to be Marcy's father says just keep her safe. Harrison, Nora's dad, then says, "I thought you might like to know she's grown up, healthy and strong. We named her Nora." Marcy's dad, we presume, says, "I don't want to be reminded of her name. I've done everything in my power to stamp it out from my mind. I don't want to know anything about her." I even wrote, "So you're not her dad?" And I just need you to trust me that I did think that at the time. I just assumed I was reading into it too much, but it was just that specific phrasing. I was like, why are you telling him that? It's almost like you've taken her into your care. Marcy then saying that made me remember that. Potentially, Marcy Miller and Nora are related. Regardless, Nora just keeps being like, no, that's not true, and then leaves. But as she's like walking around bereft, she has a memory of not long after her dad's funeral, her and V had skipped school. They'd gone back to Nora's house assuming her mum would be at work. There's a car parked in the drive that is not Nora's mum's. They like hide out of sight, and then they see Marcy Miller's dad coming out of the house and talking to Nora's mum. And V says, if that was anyone else, I'd suspect something, but your mum is like not like that. Like he's probably just trying to sell her a car or something. Marcy Miller's dad works at the Toyota dealership in town, and that seems to be like a really big deal. They've mentioned it so many times, but I really don't care about it. They don't think anything of it, but obviously now Nora, with this other information, is thinking back and like, oh, were they actually together like that close after their dad's funeral? And she just like spirals and freaks out and calls V and asks if she can stay at hers for a while because she doesn't want to be at home when her mum comes back. She's away on work at the moment. V is out at that point, so Nora does go back home. She ends up falling asleep, and guess who's in her dream? It's Patch. He's finally used this ability again. Basically says the archangels can't hear them while they're in a dream, and he needs to tell her things that are going on. We find out that somehow they must have some kind of weird connection, because the time when she had the dream about Marcy's dad, Patch was thinking about him and remembering that exact memory that she dreamed about, so it was almost like he put the memory in her dream somehow. Nora takes in this information. If the dream was real, Hank Miller had been living in England hundreds of years ago. My memory spun back to the dream. Tell the barkeep to send help, Hank had said. Tell him there is no man. Tell him it's one of the devil's angels come to possess my body and cast away my soul. Was Hank Miller Nephilim? Obviously, everything about that dream would suggest he was. And again, this is where I need Nora to pay more attention to dreams, because that was obviously not a normal dream. She was so aware of the fact that she was dreaming. We then discover that Patch has been reassigned to Marcy, and that's why he's been spending so much time with her. They had been listening when she said she loved him and gave him that ring of her dad's, and right then they reassigned him to Marcy, and that's why he went to her house afterwards, because he wanted to stew on what he'd done.
I really honed my brooding skills.
The reason they reassigned to Marcy is because Hank Miller is in fact a Nephilim, first generation. Now that Marcy is about to turn 16, she is potentially in danger of being sacrificed, because when Patch tried to sacrifice Nora the year before, even though it failed, he obviously became a guardian angel out of what happened. A lot of other fallen angels have started to realize that there are ways for them to not be a fallen angel anymore, so it's put potential hosts at a lot more danger. And we also find out that apparently Marcy has absolutely no idea. She doesn't know anything about angels or Nephilim. She is completely in the dark. We also find out that Chauncey started the Nephilim Blood Society that is branding people now. When he died, a successor took over. Patch assumes the successor must be somehow related to Chauncey, which makes me think it's her dad, because her dad, every time she's seen her dad, he's been weird. So unless that's not her dad and it's just someone making her think it's her dad and it's some other random character, I don't know, I just think it's her dad. But we also find out that whoever it is that took over has put a contract out on whoever killed Chauncey. No one aside from Patch and Nora knows who killed Chauncey, so there's not really any danger for her at the moment, but it's still best that she's careful. Patch basically says that he needs her to ask the archangels to make him her guardian angel again, but Nora obviously still thinks he killed her dad, so she says no, and then just forces herself to wake up so he's not in her dreams anymore. When she wakes up, she's kind of thinking over things and thinking about how certain things don't make sense, which I agree with. Certain things that she believes do not make sense. Nora then decides the only person who might have more information about this is Scott, but Scott told her not to speak to him again. So Nora decides that she is going to look through his bedroom instead, and she enlists V's help in this. Scott really doesn't want to talk to Nora, but she says there's a band that she thinks he would be good for and that she's arranged an audition for him. He is wary of this and wants a lot more information, and she had not thought about this lie at all. She gets V to call him pretending to be the girlfriend of one of the band members. They give him the false information and he heads off for the audition. Nora goes in, says to his mum that Scott had asked her to come and get some sheet music that he forgot, so she goes up to his room to look around, and she finds like a bit in the wall that's clearly been cut out and then like covered over again to make it look like there's not a hole there. So she manages to pull it out and finds like a box that's been heavily duct taped. Scott, however, realizes that this is a setup, so he turns around and comes back. Nora, in a stroke of genius, who happened to have a hot dog with her, by the way, leaves the hot dog on his desk with a little note under it, and when Scott comes back and is like, "You lied," and his mum is like, "Yeah, were you lying, Nora?" She's like, "Yeah, sorry, I did lie. I really just wanted to leave this hot dog and this note to ask him to come to the dance with me." And like the note says, "Don't be a wiener, come to the dance with me," or something. So Nora manages to get out of it. She goes back home, opens the box, and inside is another one of the Black Hand's rings, and she's like, that's odd, because he told me that he was just branded and then left. He told me he didn't know who this person was. He told me a lot of things. Why would he keep the ring of someone who basically assaulted him? That's odd behavior. And then she starts to hear something at the front door. It clicks open and it's Scott. He basically says that the Black Hand wants him dead and he needs the ring back because they'd said he needed to keep the ring or else something bad would happen to him. And Nora's like, that's weird. Doesn't he know that he can't die? Does Scott not know that he's Nephilim? She thinks that he voluntarily joined the gang. That's why he kept the ring, because the Black Hand gave it to him after. Scott denies this and said that he's been trying to escape the Black Hand ever since the branding. Nora clocks the fact that he said he'd never seen the Black Hand again after the branding, and Scott basically says that he'd been following him. He would always turn up wearing a ski mask, and if you remember correctly, in book 1, Jules was always turning up places wearing a ski mask. Scott's just trying to get the the ring back off her. She obviously doesn't want to give it back. She hides herself in the toilet, and for some reason she has a paring knife in the toilet, which she says is she uses it to open cosmetic products. So she grabs the knife as he like kicks in the door, threatens her with the knife instead. Conveniently, Rickson and V turn up at this point because V apparently had like a sense that Nora needed her, which has happened a few times and makes me think, okay, what's going on with V then if she just keeps having this weird feeling about Nora. Rickson beats the shit out of Scott, and then they call the police, and the arsehole detective comes and arrests Scott. V and Rickson stay for a while, but like not too long, which actually is kind of weird because Scott had completely ruined the front door. That leads me to believe this house is completely insecure, but they just leave Nora there on her own. Nora decides she obviously doesn't want to go to sleep because she doesn't want Patch to come into her dreams. She also doesn't really feel safe in her house, so she decides she's still going to go to Patch's apartment on the off chance that he's out and have a look around. When she gets there, it's almost like this apartment has been completely abandoned. Gone off food everywhere, it's really cluttered, it's really dirty. It's as if like no one's been in there for ages. Is that Patch's apartment? Apparently Rickson goes to his apartment a lot, so Rickson led her to the wrong place. She's having a look around for a while, doesn't find anything, and then she spots a little jewellery box under the desk, which she opens, and there's 6 of the Black Hand's rings in there. Just as she finds them, the front door opens, so she finds somewhere to hide. She hears some like rummaging around inside, and then whoever it was leaves again. Then she starts hearing a ticking noise, and she's like, wait, I couldn't hear a clock beforehand. So she goes and looks, and someone's put a bomb in the apartment. She runs out and manages to escape just as the place blows up. So I'm thinking, right, Rickson told her where this address was. He was the only person that knew she was going to be there. So there's 2 options here, right? Either someone was trying to kill Patch, but would a bomb kill a guardian angel? Probably not, which makes me think, okay, were they trying to kill Nora? The only person that would know she was going to be there would be Rickson. I don't know, we don't really know a lot about Rickson. And again, I just don't trust anyone that V's with from past experience of her being with Jules. Also, the information that Patch was the Black Hand came from Rickson as well. And Patch didn't confirm or deny, he just said, who told you that? Starting to have suspicions about Rickson, but they've been friends for such a long time. I don't know. Nora still doesn't sleep after that. She just goes home. The next day she gets a call from V and says they should go to Delphic. When Nora's there, she gets a call from the arsehole detective saying that Scott has managed to break out of jail. They're concerned he's going to come after Nora. Arsehole detective is on his way to Nora's house. Obviously Nora's not there, so he tells her to get to her house as soon as possible. So she goes to try and find V. Scott finds her on the way, demands the ring back. She decides she needs to try and keep him in the park and just find a way to contact the arsehole detective. She lies and says she threw the ring in a bin near the woman's toilets, and they go over there. She says it's in the toilet, but he takes her phone. She then just runs out the window to try and get away, and that's where I've got to. We've only got 50 pages left, so I don't feel like we're going to get answers to everything here. I will be back as soon as I have finished. I knew we shouldn't be trusting Rickson. Let me inform you of what happened in the last 50 pages. There was quite a few things that seemed a little bit ridiculous and I didn't quite understand. So let's talk through them together, right? She was trying to run away from Scott. She's running through the crowd, trying to get out. He's blocking the exit. She tries to run somewhere else. He gets to her. He says he really needs the ring back. He'll hurt her if he has to. Nora manages to get away from him, and then gunshots. She turns around. Scott's been shot by Rickson. Obviously he can't die because he's Nephilim, but he's bleeding a lot. It's an injury. It's gonna take energy out of him. Scott manages to get away, so Nora goes up to Rickson and V. Rickson is trying to form a plan of how they're gonna get out. He says they can't go out the main entrance because Scott will be there, and he knows another way out. He tells V to get the car and bring it around to a different side, and he will take Nora through the underground tunnels to get them out to safety. As soon as this man said that, I was like, why are you trying to get Nora on her own? Nora does not have the same inclination. They end up in like the haunted house part of the amusement park, because that's where the underground tunnel entrance is. And as they're walking through, Nora thinks someone's behind her. Rickson says no one's there, but then she turns around again and she sees the face of her dad. She's like, no, every other time I've seen my dad, he's tormented me. me. But then she hears his voice again and it sounds different this time. It does actually sound like her dad. He says he's got an angel of death pausing time so he can come and talk to her. He doesn't really say a huge amount. He's saying goodbye mostly. And one of the things in particular he says as well, I don't care how or why you came into my life, only that you did. I should have followed my initial instinct that he was not her real father. All he says is, if you want to know the truth, touch Rixon's scars and go into his memories. She does, and she sees the night that her dad died. So basically it's the scene from the prologue. She sees him running back in, she sees someone slumped on the sofa as if they've just been shot, and that is Hank Miller, and he tells Harrison to run away. He doesn't. He shoots the person who's there, who had obviously just shot Hank, and who then goes on to kill Harrison, and all Nora saw of him was the back of his head, but he was wearing a blue cap, which is what Patch has been wearing throughout. But obviously it's not Patch, because if she was in Rixon's memories, why would it be Patch? Why would she not be seeing Rixon? To be fair, Nora does come to the conclusion of, initially she's like, Patch killed my dad, and Rixon's like, yeah, he did. He didn't want to tell you because obviously it was before you guys met and he didn't want to hurt you, but yeah, he did. And then Nora's like, wait, there was only 3 people in the memory. Why was I seeing it in your memory? And then she's like, oh shit, you killed my dad. And then Rixon goes on like the biggest villain speech ever. It was literally a full page paragraph. Essentially, Hank Miller was previously known as Barnabas, and Nora remembered in one of the memories she'd seen of Patch talking about their hosts, Rixon mentioned his host being called Barnabas, so she's like, oh shit, Hank Miller is your host, and he is my dad, and that's why you want to kill me, you want to sacrifice me so you can turn human. And she's like, but wait, Chauncey, I'm descended from Chauncey on my dad's side, how can I be descended from Hank Miller? And we discovered that somehow, I was really confused by this bit, hang on. Somehow Hank is a descendant of Chauncey, but Hank's mum was a fallen angel, so he still counts as first gen, even though he does still have Chauncey in his ancestry as well. And basically we find out that Rixon has been orchestrating everything. He took advantage of the fact that she broke up with Patch, was then trying to drive a wedge between them, lied about Patch still being her guardian angel so that she'd feel safe when actually she wasn't, lied about the address. I was right about that. That wasn't really Patch's house. That was in a film hideout, and it was him that tried to blow her up because he thought it would be like, I don't know, exciting to do the sacrifice in an explosion. He also delivered the ring that said the hand killed her dad. He also drugged the card with the perfume, and he also lied about Patch being the hand. He also knew about Nora being a descendant of Barnabas or Hank Miller a long time ago. He was trying to convince Patch not to use the Book of Enoch so he could sacrifice Nora and become human. So this has been his plan all along. Then, this is ridiculous, he's about to kill her, he's leading her away, and then he falls through a trapdoor in the haunted house. So she's able to escape, runs away. She ends up on like a water ride bit and is like hopping from boat to boat to try and get out. He then manages to catch up and is behind her. There's like a huge waterfall bit, like a drop bit, and she manages to get out of that bit, and she realizes she's found like a service cupboard, so she goes to hide in there. But who else is in the cupboard? It's not Patch. It's Scott. Scott is somehow in the cupboard, seeming very worse for wears because obviously he's been shot and he's still trying to heal. We discover that he actually feels really guilty because one of the things that the hand had told him to do was to follow Harrison on the night that he got killed and to keep him safe. Scott, fed up with the hand dictating his life, decided not to. He just stayed at work, and then Harrison got killed, so he blames himself for Nora's dad's death. Still don't really know why he needed the ring so badly. That was never explained. He then goes to try and kill himself or shoot himself, and Nora's like, you can't. What they said about you being in a film is true. Rixon's a fallen angel and he's trying to kill me, so if you really want to make it up to me, don't shoot yourself because it's not going to work, and also help me get out of here. Rixon then comes in and Scott is like, if you want her, you're going to have to go through me, and Rixon just shoots him like a few more times and then he passes out, so that didn't really work out too well. I don't really know what Rixon does to try and kill her. He does something to try and kill her, and then Patch turns up. She sees a glimpse of Patch and then she passes out. The next thing she knows, she's being carted carted off to hospital by Detective Arsehole. When she gets back home after being at the hospital, she has a voicemail from Scott basically saying he's healing and he's got away and she'll never hear from him again, asks her to delete the message after, and also has just bought her a car. Feeling sentimental, she does delete the message and is happy that she'll have a new car. And then who turns up? It's Pat. It says that he's gone rogue. He's broke away from the guardian angels and the archangels, and he's now a free agent. He decides who he looks after, and he's decided he's going to look after her. It seems like they can be together, but they have limited time because the archangels will come after him. He defied them to go and keep her safe, and also then sent Rixon to hell.
To hell?
He had suspicions about Rixon. When he was her guardian angel, he could tell someone was trying to kill her, but they were keeping their thoughts very guarded, and he knew a human wouldn't do that. There were little things that made him think it was Rixon, although he never tells us what they are, so I don't know what tipped him off. They're like kind of free to be together, so it seems. He finally takes her to where he lives, which is at Delphic Amusement Park, because we discover Delphic was built by fallen angels, and so the archangels don't really go there. And he's like, the archangels wouldn't dare coming here. It's just me and you tonight. And he finally tells her that he loves her, and then from out of the shadows in his little shack of a house come a whole group of Nephilims led by Hank Miller, who is the Black Hand. Was I right about that?
No.
I can't remember. I said I thought it was her dad, and he's technically her dad, so I'm gonna say I was right.
No.
He gets all the Nephilim to apprehend Patch, and Hank then also just does a fucking villain speech where he's like, I'm the Black Hand, I knew your father, I'm very ashamed to see you've grown up to debase yourself with such as him, making a mockery of your heritage. By the way, did you kill my friend Chauncey? And then that's it. That's the end of the book. They're obviously not going to kill Patch. He's a fucking guardian angel. They're not going to kill him. Are they going to try and kill Nora? He can't kill Nora though. That's the thing. He can't kill Nora because if Nora dies, then he'll die. Okay, so I'm sat here editing and I'm sorry, but I'm actually now just really confused as to why he didn't die the first time that she died. Because as I understood it, if the female descendant of any first gen Nephilim dies, then the first gen dies. So why did he not die before? I'm very confused. There was also some questions about why Hank was so adamant on hiding Nora, but not doing that with Marcy. So maybe Marcy isn't his. I have no idea. We're gonna have to read Silence to find out properly what's happening. Objectively, I can see that these books are not good. Objectively, I can see that all of the characters are awful. And I think my thoughts are quite similar to what I said with the first one, where this is so obviously of its time. There is always going to be a part of me that can appreciate these books because of the nostalgia and how much I enjoyed reading them as a teenager. As an adult, they can be quite frustrating to read at times because everyone is making teenage decisions. I really can't remember if I liked Nora or not when I read this the first time. I really hope I didn't. Her decision-making skills are abysmal.
You've got no chutzpah. Your organisational skills are lacklustre. Your timekeeping is abysmal.
There was a review I read, actually. It was absolutely banger. Kim on Goodreads, your review made me laugh so much. I don't agree with all of it. They do say that Nora doesn't deserve Patch and that V is a really good friend and Nora doesn't deserve her either. I disagree. I think Patch is a whiny little edgelord and I think V is a terrible friend. Nora is not a good friend to V and V is not a good friend to Nora. They're just both shit. Kim's review that I did really appreciate. Dear Nora, how shall I put this? You're a stupid, stupid girl. The guy who loves you spends his time trying to get through your thick skull and show you what you mean to him. You, my dear, are an idiot. You're incapable of making rational decisions. Not even normal ones are an option with you. The amazing leaps between your conclusions are way beyond my understanding, like in a galaxy far, far away even. When a guy tells you he'd sacrifice himself for you, you don't go around complaining how he ran when you told him you love him. He ran because you were in danger. I'm sorry the moment was ruined by the person who tried to kill you, Nora. I lost count of how many times you told Patch to get out. Why don't you go get out and buy a decent brain? I do agree, the mental leaps that Nora makes are infuriating. It's like she is just being deliberately obtuse and blind to every sign in front of her. I think I enjoyed this book less than the first one because the entire book was basically just Nora and Patch fighting. I'm hoping the next book is not the same. Surely we're not going to do a fourth wing where just every time there's an excuse for them to be arguing all the time and it's just insufferable and annoying and should have ended within like the first half of the first book. surely we're not going to do that. I don't know when I'll get to the next one. I think I do need a little break before I read the next one, but I don't think it will be as long this time. I hope you've enjoyed reliving this with me after reliving Hush Hush. That is all from me today, so I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.